guys, and welcome to the newest episode of Be Hero Presents, the Bump Card Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, as always, Brian, and with me tonight is my tag partner, Psycho. How are you doing tonight, Psycho?
I'm good. I can't complain.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I am super excited because, we are currently on the road to WrestleMania, and for my personal self, this is actually a very special one because we're doing the stuff with Devotion in Vegas the day before WrestleMania starts. That's like literally hours before SmackDown. So I'm super excited for this road to WrestleMania. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I am very excited about it, and I think it has all the makings of being a classic WrestleMania.
Yeah. I'm hoping that it goes down that path. It feels like it is, but there's also a lot of question marks about the delivery. But I guess all we can do is see what happens and do a review after. So with all that being said, guys, as we are on the road to WrestleMania, this episode we are actually going to be talking about stuff from WrestleMania, as we usually do around this time of the year. But specifically, we are going to talk about some of the gimmick-style matches of WrestleMania. And we'll go more into that here shortly. Before we do that, though, we will talk about the World Wrestling News, as we always do. So, Psycho, hit us with some of that great news.
All right. So first thing we should probably talk about, I don't believe we talked about the initial thing. So have you heard about I'm sure you've heard about the lawsuit against AEW that Ryan Nemeth has filed. Have you heard about that?
Yep.
Okay. Have we talked about this on the show yet?
We talked about the initial story of it, but not about the lawsuit. At least I don't think we talked about the lawsuit, but we did talk about the initial story.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of the quick and dirty version of the lawsuit is Ryan Nemeth, he brother of Dolph Ziggler, right, or Nick Nemeth. He basically feels he was mistreated by AEW, and that he was assaulted by CM Punk or whatever, and that they did nothing to stop it. Is that pretty much the gist? From what you understand?
For the most part, there's also the whole thing with him being sent home and everything else that's largely involved with it. Partially because with the AEW, you fly yourself out. Like, they don't fly you out. Mm-hmm. So when you go to these shows and stuff, you pay on your own dime, but you're making the money to equal it out. And so because he had to fly himself out there and didn't get booked, which means he didn't make money that night, it means that he's essentially losing money. Okay.
There was also something in there about how he said that they were trying to blackball him, or they blackballed him from the industry, which I always find funny because he's working for TNA. So clearly, blackballed from who? But and why did we not hear more? Like, we knew there was an argument with CM Punk, but as far as like an assault or anything like that, like, I feel like we would have heard about that with everything else going on at the time if it was more than that. But
I don't know. Like, there has been some shadiness, especially around the time that Punk was there, and not directly with Punk. Like showing doing the shadiness, but like the backstage shadiness of how a lot of the human resource portions were handled. And there's been stories we've talked about on here about that specifically. So it very well could have been that it did happen, but he was, hush moneyed or hushed out until he was able to not. I mean, we talked about changing the name of my finish at one point to the NDA specifically because of AEW and all that shenanigans going on.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, because they didn't really have like a human resource thing until all the Punk, once Punk left, that's basically what ushered all of that in, because they basically nobody was reprimanded before that. Like there were other fights in that locker room that like slap on the wrist type stuff. But what I want to talk about as far as this news is, so AEW has filed a new motion in the lawsuit. Have you heard about this one? Okay, so I'm going to read this as it stands here. Says, so this is what AEW, Tony Khan, has filed in this lawsuit. Says, any public interest in obtaining access to the terms of the agreements is outweighed by AEW's legitimate interest in maintaining the confidentiality of the contractual relationship at issue. Moreover, maintaining confidentiality of the terms between AEW and its wrestlers and former wrestlers, such as respondent, is essential for AEW to remain competitive in the wrestling industry, and allowing the agreements to be filed on the public docket will result in substantial and irreparable harm to AEW's and petitioner Khan's business, which harm cannot be reduced or eliminated through any other reasonable means. Moreover, redaction or any other means will not cure the harm that petitioners stand to suffer if the terms of AEW's confidential business relationships become accessible by its competitors. What's your thoughts here in that?
Well, let's dumb that down real fast. And not saying that anyone's dumb, but it's a lot of legalese. Basically stating that they don't want to make their contracts public to stuff with Nemeth and or anybody, which they would have to do in a motion for discovery to do so. Because there's making it public means that the WWE can see how much they are making, and they could try to highball them, i.e. what WCW had done to WWE, and go in that path. So they're saying that will literally cause too much damage. Additionally, making it so that it's redacted so it only shows the aspects of, like, say, Nemeth's name and his time there and maybe something like that is going to do a similar problem, because they can't redact it without also possibly causing that similar damage. I call BS on all of that. For the most part, I mean, I can kind of understand to the aspect that the WWE will have the access to see it to be public, but I can guarantee you, just knowing how wrestlers are going to wrestler, there's already been views of contracts from there. Like if a worker from AEW is also friends with somebody from WWE, they've already shown and shared what the contract looks like. I can guarantee you that's already happened. So it's such a petty thing to try and do. It's a fantastic idea on the lawyer's side, but it's such a petty thing to do.
Well, this whole thing's silly, right? Because I think it's petty on Ryan Nemeth's part too. It's like, because like, really, like the whole blackballing thing, he's basically guaranteeing that he's going to get blackballed. Because if TNA lets him go, where's he going to go? He's basically going to get shut out of the business.
It's true.
Where's he going to go? He can't go to AEW because he's suing them. He can't go to WWE because CM Punk is there, who's also part of this lawsuit and definitely has ties there. So he's basically canceling himself. All for, the chance he can get some money out of AEW. Doesn't make any sense to me. That sounds like a petty move. But when you're the, least popular Nemeth brother, you got to do something, I guess. But it doesn't help his brother either, really.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, the nice thing is for the most part, Nick has kept himself far enough away from all that and hasn't really responded to questions or anything about it, that he's fairly clean. But it's all dumb, and everyone should feel bad.
Yeah, the whole thing's stupid. I think it's all going to get thrown out of court anyway. I don't see it actually going to court. But we'll see.
If it does, and even more importantly, if Nemeth somehow wins, that's going to actually create a precedent, which is going to be quite interesting, because then that will allow others who feel slighted by a promotion, WWE or AEW either, or AEW or WWE, I mean either, will have to start worrying about that scenario. They might have to put some legalese and new contracts to make everybody sign some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I guess we'll see. We'll see. I don't. We'll see if it gets that far.
Right.
So in other news, some Jerry Lawler health news.
Oh.
Jerry the King Lawler. So he's basically we haven't really heard anything from him really that much since his stroke. But he just had his right knee replaced about 7 months ago, and he's going to have his left knee replaced as well. So I wish the King a speedy recovery. I just want him to be healthy, because that'll be a sad day when he's no longer here.
It's very true. I mean, he was literally the voice of the 90s for wrestling for us, for the most part. So, like, it's so interesting because every color that does commentary is always going to live up to Lawler, but at the same time, Lawler could not be Lawler in this time and place, because he would be too problematic. But man, like, I'm sad to say, like, I've gone back and watched it, but I don't know Lawler as a wrestler. I only ever know him as the commentary.
You've never seen him as a wrestler?
No, I've gone back and watched it, but in my mind is what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
Like, he's only ever the commentary and never the worker. Occasionally you see him work and stuff like that, but that's not who my brain tells me he is. Like, when I classify people in those groupings, he's never classified as a wrestler.
I think Jerry Lawler is one of those wrestlers that he was equally great as, like, he was majorly a big name, as a wrestler, right? Mm-hmm. Especially in the Memphis territory. And he had the whole thing on David Letterman with Andy Kaufman and the whole story there. So big time name. And his second half of his career was in commentary, but just as well known for that.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely. He's had an amazing career on both ends.
Giggity.
I do want to mention this for news. Have you heard about the news that Alberto El Patron, the former Alberto Del Rio, have you heard about his incident that he had in Mexico?
You mean the one where he just got suspended for 90 days from AAA?
Yeah, he got banned. He got banned. I want to say it's banned from. Let's see. He got banned not just from AAA. He got banned from basically the city of Tijuana. So like not that I don't know if there's a lot of wrestling promotions that run in Tijuana, but I'm sure there are. But you can't work for any of them for 90 days. And I do want to say I heard that AAA has stripped him of his championship that he held.
That's what I heard as well. All over a fan throwing coins at him during a match. Or during his entrance, even.
I mean, I get it, getting upset about that stuff, right? It's like, I could see a coin hitting you and you losing your temper or something like that. However,
I'm not going to go chase the fan down, though.
No, you'd cuss him out probably or something like that, right? But you wouldn't. because what he did was he jumped the guardrail and he threw a chair into the crowd and it hit some lady and they had to have medical attention and then had to went to the hospital. So yeah, big time lawsuits there. It's like he's always into trouble too. Like he's one of the biggest troublemakers ever in wrestling, honestly. Like everywhere he's gone.
What was that thing at the airport with him and Paige? Like I can't remember exactly the story for it. Do you remember what it was?
At the airport, was it? I know he was abusive to Paige.
I think that's what it was. Like he hit her at the airport or something like that.
That might be. I know he was abusive though, and that was a whole toxic relationship. And he had got her fired the first time because he got her involved in his crap. And then and he got fired from the WWE before because he slapped one of the like stagehands or something like that. I don't know. Like he slapped somebody backstage and so they fired him. So like that was the first time. They brought him back after that, but it didn't last long. But yeah, it's just amazing to me like how much trouble he's had. And he's been arrested and everything. It's just like, why? He's his own worst enemy. That's what I'll say.
He reminds me a good amount of like Marty Jannetty, where he's always getting himself into his own problems, but he has such high opinion of himself. And don't get me wrong, I love Marty Jannetty. I've always been a big fan of the Rockers, but yeah, it's insane to see so much promise from somebody. And isn't Del Rio like a third generation worker?
He might be. I know he's at least a second generation, but he might be. He might be.
It's just insane because you lived around that life. So, like, assuming that your family didn't have a similar problem like with this kind of thing, you should know better. And honestly, like if I saw any of my talent that I work with in the back do even like a third of what he does, I would go out of my way to make sure that they become blackballed at DCW because that's just wrong for the crap that he does.
Yeah, I mean, we've had troublemakers in wrestling here in Utah, that got blackballed basically.
Yep.
We won't name names, but not today anyway.
I saw two of the said ones I can think of. The only two people in the wrestling business I've ever disliked this last weekend at the Autorama. Those NO players.
This last weekend?
Yeah.
We might have to talk off air on that one. Yeah. Okay. So the only other news I want to say before we get into our main topic is we haven't talked about the newest entrant into the WWE Hall of Fame, Lex Luger.
Yep.
Yes, the total package, which, for some it might be controversial, but I think he definitely deserves it based off of his career and what he's accomplished and the redemption story of where he's at now in his life. Yep. I think it's a great story. I'm happy to see he's in a much better place. At least emotionally and mentally and all that stuff. And DDP, Diamond Dallas Page has another credit to getting somebody back on track and in the good graces. Like seriously, I know Diamond Dallas Page is already in, but we might need to put him in again for all the work he's been doing with these guys like Scott Hall, before he passed, and Jake the Snake, and it's just amazing.
I would almost say have DDP get the what was that, Connor Award or the Warrior?
Yeah, he should 100%. He should get the Warrior Award, 100%.
Yeah,
yeah. Are they still doing that? I wonder, because I know they let Warrior's wife go, Dana Warrior. They let her go from whatever she was.
They can do the same gimmick because remember the first one was the Connor Award or whatever that one was, because it was before they did the Warrior one. Because Connor,
Oh, you're right.
then they did the Connor, whatever they called the Connor Award.
No. They gave the award to Connor, and that was the Warrior Award.
Was that
the first one?
The first one?
That was the first one. Yes, because Connor was there at WrestleMania 30. He was still alive because he was there to see Daniel Bryan win the title, and he was in the crowd doing the yes. And Warrior was at that one in the Hall of Fame and passed away, on that Monday or whatever. Or I guess it would be the Monday night or the Tuesday morning after, whatever.
The following week.
Yeah. It was a couple of days later because he appeared on Raw and then like the next day he passed away.
Sometime in the following week.
Okay. You make it seem like it's so long after though. But yeah. So Lex Luger, amazing story. And he wasn't as bad of a wrestler as people make him out to be.
No. He was pretty much a lot of what I've always seen about a lot of big men in the indies, especially the ones that don't make it, is they're big men that can do big men things, but only can do big men things, if that makes sense. And like they don't have like a great amount of charisma. Like he at least had the charisma. He had the look, the big man talent, and the charisma, which is missing from a lot of people. Look at so many big men in the WWE that are only there for about a year or so that might even be better wrestlers in general than Luger was. But Luger had staying power because of his charisma, his natural charisma. The guy cannot cut a promo to save his life, but his natural charisma that he had. Like, think of when he did the body slam on the battleship with Yokozuna. Yeah. Like, how much charisma he oozed after dropping that body slam and stuff like that. To kind of do a little bit of a rub from WrestleMania 3. It's the right... Like, Luger was always going to go to the Hall of Fame. It never seemed like he was never going to go, to me. And I think right now is the perfect time for him to go because of the redemption story he's going through and the stuff he's going through with DDP. I'd almost say like H just called up DDP's like, hey, who are you working with this week? Oh, yeah, let's bring him in the Hall of Fame.
In fairness, it was actually Diamond Dallas Page that reached out, and said, hey, I'm working. Yeah. He basically pitched it. Yeah. Luger's... I'm happy he's going in before he's no longer here to give an acceptance speech, which is, what so many greats, they wait too long, and then they are passed away and they induct them, but it's not the same. It's like, yes, it's great they go in, but I don't know about you, but like for me, when a wrestler goes into the Hall of Fame, I want to hear their speech. That's the main draw for me. It's like, yes, it's nice after they're gone, they should go in, but it's not the same hearing from a relative of theirs or something like that, as it is hearing from them while they're alive.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing to say to like have a posthumously granted award relative to like getting it there, and more importantly, feeling the emotion of it, because it's not just listening to, but it's the emotion of knowing that you're getting this award in front of your brothers and your sisters, right? Think of like Taker, right? When Taker got his, how much emotion he gave off to everybody out there and everybody he was talking to. Even Paulie, yes. When he got his, he had so much emotion and everything else because of everything in front of the boys. It's always going to be more. Always going to be more. Wrestling is that, right? Wrestling is at its peak when there's emotion involved in something, whether it's a story or a back end bit or what have you, a promo. The emotion is what makes wrestling what it is. Without that, then it is just a stage play, and you need that emotion to bring it to be more.
I'll leave it at this. Can you imagine if Paul Heyman wasn't around to give that induction speech and they just inducted Paul Heyman? It would not have been the same, right? By the same token, though, can you imagine if somebody like Eddie Guerrero would have been alive to get his induction, how great that speech would have been? It's sad that we wait until people are gone before inducting them, especially when they're going through health issues or Eddie's was sudden. I get that. But there's so many others that they just waited too long on. Like, I would have loved to have seen Vader, be able to give a speech, and he's still not in, and he deserves to be in.
Agreed. The thought for you, and it was just made me think about it, because he's also been dealing with health issues for years. What do you feel about Conan? Because Conan, I don't remember ever wrestling in the WWE directly, but like the ties with WCW, I think he should go in. And not only that, because everything he did for Mexican wrestling, bringing it to the U.S., bringing in like Ray and Eddie and everybody else.
First, I'll say he absolutely deserves to go in. And he was at the Hall of Fame. Was it last year that he inducted Rey Mysterio? Or was it the year before?
Year before.
Okay.
Because Ray was the big one for that year, and Paulie was last year.
That's right. The other thing is Conan actually did wrestle for the WWE. Not as Conan, though. He was the original Max Moon.
Oh.
If you remember that gimmick, the mask gimmick, that was Conan.
Okay. But he has done so much for the business in its own right. Like I said before, all the stuff he did in Mexico for Mexican wrestling, bringing Mexican wrestling to the U.S., Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Psychosis, so many guys that he brought in to the bigger world of wrestling. Conan deserves to go, and Conan has been dealing with like liver and kidney issues for like a decade now. So he should definitely go in beforehand. And I imagine his acceptance speech would be great.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. There's still so many people that should go in for sure. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, with Luger, where his health is right now, I want to see him walk to the podium.
That would be amazing. I will say that with Luger going in, they need to induct Elizabeth like as soon as they can. Like, because that's somebody that should go in. That should have went in a long time ago. But
I think this is too. It's also a perfect timing for Luger as well. And I think right now, I don't know if they'll do two women, but like having Elizabeth in, but not as the headliner, kind of like they're doing now with Luger, who's not going to be the headliner because H is the headliner in this one,
right?
Is the right way to do it because it gets them in, it gets everybody what they want, but it also
doesn't draw attention to it.
Exactly, and doesn't bring all of the extra baggage to go along with it on there. And Luger's in that same fashion. Like Luger is perfect timing because you get that, and the way that they did it too. Like they were perfect in the way they announced it with Cody, and having Cody do it by going to CDDP. Like that was telling the right way, so it hides all of the negative.
Yeah. Great. So, well, let's get into our main topic.
Yep. All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the gimmick matches. And what a gimmick match is, gimmick matches that have been at WrestleMania. And what a gimmick match is are matches that are not a standard match. So the example you would get is something like a ladders match or a tables match, a battle royal, that kind of thing. Traditional matches like a triple threat, singles match, tag match, even a 6-man, 8-man, 10-man are not going to really apply in this for what we're talking about. We're going to talk about a more of a standard gimmick match to go in that fashion. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these different kinds of matches and how they have affected WrestleMania, if they work with WrestleMania, if they don't work with WrestleMania, and why for each. And we talk about some of the best parts, or some of those best representations of those gimmick matches that have happened at WrestleMania. All right. So ready to go ahead and talk about this, Nicky?
Yeah. All right. So we will start with TLC matches. So go ahead.
I was going to say the first TLC match at WrestleMania was TLC 2, right?
Correct. Okay. Yep, you got the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys at WrestleMania 17.
Alrighty. Well, it is an interesting play. Like, I've always liked the TLC match, but the TLC match ostensibly was nothing more than a fancy ladder match. So, but just to have those 6 men in the ring to do this again, because they did the Tory Invitational. Was that what the original storyline was for this? Was Christian and Edge against the Hardys in a ladder match, if I remember right?
So that's what started it, right? Was those two teams. And so then that was the ladder portion. And then at the Royal Rumble right after that, you had the Hardy Boys against the Dudley Boys in a tables match, which brought you to WrestleMania, where you had a ladder match, but with those 3 teams. And then SummerSlam, they did the official TLC match, which was not much different than the original, or the ladder match that they did at the previous WrestleMania, just basically with better branding, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, now you're getting those 3 things in there.
Which I always love, because like when you go and buy the merchandise for WWE, right, and you go buy the ring and everything else, the TLC version, you get the tables, ladders, and chairs and everything else. It's totally different. It's not exactly the same thing up the exact same assembly line as the one for the ladder match or the tables match. No, this is the TLC match.
Yes, I mean, when you get the right people to do it, it can be great, right? Mm-hmm. Those 3 teams were excellent. They made that match famous. And there's been a lot of TLC matches since.
They had a whole TLC pay-per-view.
Yeah, it turned into its own pay-per-view. Exactly. So I think these days, like, the TLC match is fun. It doesn't deserve its own pay-per-view, at this point, because I feel like it should be used when it's warranted. But it was good with these guys. Should it be brought back? If the story was there for something like that, then sure, why not? But there's so many different versions of this that just don't have the TLC name, basically, that it's almost a thing of the past, but it could be brought back for the right people.
I think so too, if they did it right. Like, they're currently working a story right now where Nathan Frazier and Axiom just got done having a tag match against the Hardys, right? I can see those 2, maybe a big bruiser team, to come in and do like a TLC match kind of thing and go that way. Or, tie tangent, and it just popped in my head, maybe have Axiom and Frazier kind of do a TLC match against 2 other teams. And sadly, not that we can do it with Edge and Christian per se, but have the older teams kind of be like their mentors for the matches almost. to have like one more tie into the TLC, because we had TLC 1, 2, and 3, and then we had a TLC 4, if I remember, that also had the Chris's in it, Jericho and Benoit.
Yes. Yes, that was a really great match too, by the way.
Yeah.
And there were other TLCs, like Edge did a TLC match against Jeff Hardy in a singles match before, and different things. You know what I'd like to see? Because there'd have to be the right story for WrestleMania. I'd like to see some of these gimmick matches like that maybe like have been kind of surpassed or like moved on. I'd like to see them go to NXT and get revived in NXT, because the TLC match in NXT for one of their big shows, their takeovers or whatever they do these days. I don't know if they're still doing takeovers. I haven't watched NXT.
They are.
Okay. So I think that would be a big draw for NXT with some younger teams.
That's what I was leaning towards with having it with Axiom and them, because they're currently the tag champions in NXT. I agree with you wholeheartedly. They also did the Raw roulette wheel kind of thing, but they did it for Halloween Havoc recently.
Spin the wheel, make the deal.
Yeah, and one of the options on there was a TLC match. Not that they landed on it, but
I like that. I like when they recycle these things that maybe it's nostalgic to bring it back to NXT and have them do it. They did that with War Games, and now look, War Games caught on again, where now it's Survivor Series thing. So I think NXT is NXT isn't just where you have the young wrestlers of tomorrow, and then like maybe some established stars going there to that maybe need to be revitalized. It can also be where gimmick matches go, or even events like a Halloween Havoc or a Starrcade or something. I honestly think NXT should bring that stuff and revive it, and I would watch that in NXT.
Well, they do a lot of their the old WCW named it reviews already on NXT. Like they do Great American Bash. They did Halloween Havoc. They do what they call Vengeance Day instead of Vengeance. So it's the WWE one. But they have several of those. They still do takeovers every once in a while, but most of the time now they're branded ones. Like their WrestleMania pay-per-view that they do is called Stand and Deliver. But it's the way you were explaining it, and it kind of fits perfectly, whether it's the naming of a pay-per-view or a match type or a worker. NXT is no longer a developmental as it is more of a proving ground. Proving either you're a good worker should be brought up, a concept should be brought back or not, or the name of a pay-per-view or PLE should be saved or not. They even did, I want to say they did some in your houses too, way back when too.
Yes, they did. I agree. It's like it's basically it's a testing ground, right? To see if it's going to get over again or whatever. Because I think honestly, like their Evolve or whatever is like their developmental now.
Yeah, Evolve was what NXT was at the start, right? Even before the Black and Gold,
right?
Back when you had like Finn Balor as champion down there, right? That was what NXT was. NXT was a little bit higher peak than Evolve is, but that's what it was. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the Evolve stuff yet.
I haven't yet.
It is. It's like watching some of the tapes of old FSW way back when. FCW way back when, before Championship Wrestling. When you would see guys on there, like say Roman Reigns or something like that, you can kind of see a spark of something, but it was rough.
Right, because they're green. They're still very green. They're still learning the ropes.
Yeah. That being said, two of the guys that are currently on Evolve, I've not only met, but had the opportunity of taping several of their matches. So, yay me. What's the next gimmick match we got going?
So we kind of alluded to it with like how it has evolved, but Money in the Bank. That's something that is basically a TLC match because they always use tables, they always use chairs. There's obviously the ladders where they have to go up and get the briefcase. I mean, the first one that they did, Edge really made that whole concept famous because he won the first one, and then that they didn't have the idea of the cash in when somebody was down or beaten up. They didn't have that idea ahead of time. That I was just watching an interview with Adam Copeland or Cope or Edge, as we'll talk about him here, and he said that he had the briefcase for almost a year and realized, hey, we gotta use this. It's almost that time, and he pitched the idea of cashing it in like that, because they were just going to have him challenge for a match or get an opportunity for the title. And he pitched the idea of doing that. It's like it fits Edge's character, and Vince went for it and then said, hey, we're going to put the title on you. You're going to cash in and win. Because Edge was fine with losing, but it was like, no, we're going to cash in, it's the first one. So cash in, win, and then we'll just get the title back on John, a few weeks later, because it was never the plan. And it worked, and it's still here to this day.
Yeah, and that's where you have to have it like succeed, because if it fails on your first time out, or even the first couple of times, like within the first couple of times, then it kind of diminishes it, right? Additionally, remind me, because I do not remember, what happened first? Was it Money in the Bank or Feast or Fired from TNA?
Money in the Bank.
Okay.
They did not steal that from TNA. It was the other way around.
Okay. I could not remember for sure. I know we stole the concept as it for Deadly Sins way back when, but I could not remember if Feast or Fired was first or not. That being said, I've always enjoyed Money in the Bank, and I kind of always liked the concept of Money in the Bank as a match at WrestleMania for multiple reasons. And we'll probably say this a couple times as we go through these for other gimmick styles. But one, it allows not only more wrestlers, but more WrestleMania moments available to these wrestlers who may not get that opportunity, right? So let's say that you've got 8 to 10 people in a Money in the Bank, which is pretty close to regular. It's usually between 6 to 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. Of guys who are maybe mid-card needing that push to get up there. Or even guys who are more main event, but they just don't have anything for them for storyline. That allows them to get that opportunity. And then you do what WrestleMania is supposed to do, which is end the year and begin the new by starting off with a Money in the Bank available to them. It's why it's so hard for Money in the Bank, even though it's a good show, to have it in the middle of the season, essentially, or middle of the year for wrestling, because now it kind of feels like it throws a lot of stuff off. The downside is you can't do 2 Money in the Banks on WrestleMania, one for ladies, one for men. But I've always liked the concept of it being at WrestleMania.
I'm going to disagree here, and I feel like initially, yeah, but then they all kind of blended together on WrestleMania when they were doing the Money in the Banks, and it was just like they all blended together. Mm-hmm. I like it having its own pay-per-view, or PLE, because now that you do have the women's, it deserves its own show.
I agree. I personally preferred it there, but I understand why, and I do like it. I just preferred it.
Yeah, and it's it's one of their highest drawing shows, honestly, outside of the Big Four. So, they do it in a stadium now for most of the time for Money in the Bank. So it's it's a good show, and I like that they open up with like the women's and then they close with the men's, or or they do the Money in the Bank, the men's one right before a championship match or something. I don't know. I think right now that one is one of those ones where you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? You can't put the genie back in the bottle. That one's just kind of out, and I don't think you can bring it back to just WrestleMania without it impacting the women.
I agree, but when we're talking about some of the matches from WrestleMania, like the Gimmick style, I'd always preferred it here because of how it helped with the year's stories, like the story for the year.
Yeah.
That being said, I understand totally, and it does feel like the new five, the big five, being there for Money in the Bank, because it does create so much story and stuff like that and then the draw for it. Because you also get like other ones like later on, like SummerSlam, where they're doing it where you get
the Crown Jewel.
No, I'm sorry, King of the Ring.
King of the Ring. Yeah.
King of the Ring, where you get a match at SummerSlam, right? So they make these feel so much bigger by doing this stuff. Money in the Bank has that for the whole year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just it made it feel special at WrestleMania because it had, again, a lot of people. I felt like though when it died because like I swear that they put one on the pre-show once.
I do not believe they did that. They put the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on the pre-show, and now it doesn't even get on the pre-show. Now it gets on like the SmackDown before WrestleMania or something.
I think there's the one that Cesaro won too, who was on the pre-show one.
Yes, I think so. Something like that. That might be, but I will say though that if they were to bring it back to WrestleMania, it is possible now because with their having two nights, they could easily split, have the women on one night, the men's, open the next night or something like that. So they could do it. I just don't think WrestleMania needs it, right?
I don't think so either. And especially now where we're two nights, it does expand the ability of having more people on the show.
Right.
Which was my biggest seller for this, right? Because anytime, as a worker and someone, occasionally that is booking, you try to get as many people, especially ones who have shown you that they deserve to be there, even if they may not have a story, but the ones that deserve to be there, you try to do your damnedest to get them on the show. And so having these opportunities of having multi-man matches for something makes it feel special. Like, think of Shelton Benjamin, right? Shelton Benjamin did so many Money in the Banks. He was pretty well known, especially early on, for the crazy crap he would do at Money in the Bank. So much so, like, even though he didn't win any of them ever, and you knew he was never going to win one, you were going to want to watch to see what crazy nonsense he was going to do, where he was creating his own moments, including ones at WrestleMania.
Yeah. So yeah, that one could go either way for me. But I always enjoy watching the Money in the Bank just for the spectacle of it. Moving on to a different one, Hell in the Cell. That's something that has happened a couple of times at WrestleMania. Do you need me to say the two that I can think of that happened?
Yes.
Actually, three now. I just thought of three. So one sucked. It was Undertaker and Big Boss Man, where Undertaker basically hung the Boss Man from the cage during the Ministry of Darkness days or whatever. Or the corporate ministry, I guess, was that at that point. But so you had that, which wasn't very good. But then you also had Undertaker versus Triple H, Hell in the Cell, with Shawn Michaels as the guest referee at WrestleMania, which was fantastic.
Was this the banana one?
What's that?
Was this the banana one?
No.
The one where, okay. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it was not. But that one was fantastic. And then you had Undertaker and Shane McMahon, Hell in the Cell at WrestleMania. So it's
that one
happened.
was the most recent one.
Yeah, you've had 3 of them. I feel. I mean, obviously, another thing where WrestleMania doesn't need it, right? I don't even like this having its own pay-per-view though, or PLE, and because I always hate when if you've got a Hell in a Cell for the women and the Hell in a Cell for the men, like it's like it defeats the whole purpose because you can't just have
it does do the on PLE anymore.
No, I don't think. No, now they put it all back where it started at their Bad Blood pay-per-view or PLE. Is what they just did it as.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And they had one. It was CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, which was fantastic. I like it when it warrants, like the feud warrants that payoff, right? So when that's why it doesn't need its own PLE. It doesn't even need to be part of a theme. Like if they did it every year at Bad Blood, I don't think it needs to be that either. I think it should be used sparingly when it's needed, and that'll keep it fresh and make it the payoff to a blood feud.
I agree for the most part. And honestly, you can say that about a lot of gimmick matches. Is they should be used as the rubber match for whatever story is going on there, the payoff, blow off. But there is the few say War Games, which has become synonymous with Survivor Series, where it needs to be more, right? Because even though you don't go into War Games assuming you know who's going to be there, like a Money in the Bank or Elimination Chamber. You don't know exactly what the plan's going to be for a War Games until they get there most of the time. That being said, I agree. I think Hell in a Cell. I think Hell in a Cell is great, and I think Hell in a Cell should totally be a blow off. And I think having it at a WrestleMania is good, but how do you top that? Let's say that they were going to do Kevin and Sammy in a Hell in a Cell on night one. How do you top that?
That'd be tough to top for sure. But I mean, you could say the same thing about a Money in the Bank match if done right, So but I don't know. There's lots of matches you could say. How are you going to top that, right? If you have a big match at a WrestleMania.
But the Hell in a Cell is in its own right indicative of being a main event massive match, right? You don't put a Hell in a Cell on first.
No.
You can put Money in the Bank on first because now you're able to tell the story of who are they going to use this? Are they going to use this thing here? Right? You can put a ladder match on, like a standard ladder match on first because you can have it for a belt like the IC or something else like that, and it'd be totally fine. But you cannot do that with the Hell in a Cell. That has to be the main event, and not just the main event. I mean the main event.
I mean, they just had it be the opening match on Bad Blood, though. It wasn't even WrestleMania, and they had it be the opening match. It just happened.
It did. Tell me the rest of the match card.
The rest of the card?
Yep.
Gosh.
My point exactly. You've now taken it away.
You had the tag match. You had Roman. Okay, you had Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes against the Bloodline.
Oh, okay. Well, that one did have a strong enough story, I guess. But I mean, you had
the Rock returning to do his little appearance there.
You had something that strong though, and sadly, you can't always get that and guarantee that.
Right.
Now, everything's got an exception, especially in wrestling. Everything has an exception, but for the most part,
yeah. I would love, by the way, for there to be a feud so big for WrestleMania where it's a main event match and then they tack on the Hell in the Cell stip to main event a WrestleMania. If they did that right with the right match, that could be huge.
You know what you could do? So have it be a match between two guys who have had just a huge, heated rivalry. And initially, they're planning on doing just a standard cage match. In fact, they'll even go old school and bring in the old blue cage. And they're like, you know what? Let's not do a blue cage. Just a blue cage. Let's get a couple of dogs. Have those running around. Oh, you know what? And then let's throw the Hell in a Cell on top of that.
Oh, my God. Stop. As Gorilla Monsoon would say, will you stop? Oh, I see what you did there. Oh my gosh.
I do miss the old school blue cage, by the way.
The wrestlers don't, I guess, because it was a beast. Like, as far as like it hurt more than the cages that they have with the chain link.
Well, the chain link bounces more in comparison to the steel, like it gives more.
Right.
I totally understand. As a worker, I 100% agree with them. As a fan, I miss the blue one.
I think they should do the blue one for Saturday night's main event because that's kind of a nostalgic show anyway. I think that would be fantastic to main event a Saturday night's main event.
Get a couple of masochists. Again, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, again, there's ladder match, but we've talked about ladder matches so much now that I mean, you could do a ladder match, but it almost like you could definitely do a ladder match. You could do that at WrestleMania if the story warranted it and have it be fantastic. You could also do that anywhere. So, I mean, it really depends on the wrestlers in it.
I would almost feel like for a standard ladder match that you could not have it for something standard. Does that make sense? Like at WrestleMania, you have to be a specialty case. Like, not that we're ever going to probably ever see it again, but imagine if we would have had the possession of Dom ladder match at WrestleMania instead. That would be a specialty case for that, I feel, over something else like a standard, like just title match. And not to throw shade on title matches, but I feel like it's got to be something even more special.
I gotta say this. So you said possession of Dom, right? And because you didn't say custody of Dom, right? You said possession of Dom, and all I could think of was like Exorcist, like possession of Dom. It's like Undertaker. That would have been great. Ladder match possession of somebody, and Dom would be perfect. It's like you win this and Dom gets possessed or something. I want to see that now.
Yeah, no. To be in my defense, I was trying to remember the word custody, and it just was not making it there. So I went to possession.
That sounds like a movie right there. The possession of Dom.
But if they were to play that back and do what everyone wants and have it between Liv and Rhea and have it be the custody of Dom, or in this case, possession of Dom, on that, it'd have to be WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't have to be, but like I that's the kind of match I'm talking about for a ladder match at WrestleMania.
I thought you were about to say the possession of Liv, and I was going to be all on board. Anyway, so another match, submission match. I feel like this one could be done with the right people. Obviously, you had Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin in one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. Honestly, it's probably... I think it might be my favorite WrestleMania match. I don't know. It's at least in the top 5. It's at least in the top 5 for historical reference, plus how good it was.
Yeah, I would definitely put it in top 5. I'm a Sean guy, so it's not my number one. But being a Brett guy, I could see how it would be close to number one for you.
The double turn, the most famous double turn ever.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Double turn actually worked.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fantastic. But submission match, it can suck too, because there was a really bad one between Bob Backlund and Bret Hart. Backlund, yeah, it was very bad at WrestleMania. That one was WrestleMania 11, and it was not good. So you need the right people.
Well, right now, because the WWE doesn't have a whole lot of strong submissionists, as it were, or tacticians, wrestling wise. I guess I'm trying to think of who would be some of the best people for
Pete
that.
Dunne. Pete Dunne could be really good in it.
He's on my list. And then my other thought was like Chad Gable. Mind you, I don't think I've seen a match between those two. I think that'd be a good match. But who else would be available to do a match like that?
Yeah, because it's very different than an I Quit match, right? Because an I Quit match you could do with anybody, because it doesn't have to be, they don't have to have great submissions. They could just beat the heck out of each other and put the mic up. Do you give up? No.
Well, the last I Quit match was Cody and AJ Styles, and literally was I quit so I don't get hit in the face with the steel steps.
Yeah, by the way, I think it was fine doing that one time. The one time they did that with like John Cena and JBL, I thought that was fine or whatever, but they've done that finish, and now I hate that finish for an I Quit match. It's such a cop-out to me. It's such a cop-out, It's like, okay, so you didn't beat them to where it's like, no, it was the thought of the pain that, made them say, I quit. Please don't hurt me.
The other option that you go with for a finish on there was the last I Quit match, which was Cope versus Finn Balor. They used Beth Phoenix and Gary Concerto her to make Cope say I quit.
Now that one I didn't mind. I liked that one in that
finish is overused.
Huh?
That kind of finish is overused.
It is, but I think that one fit the story, and it made sense why Edge or whatever would say I quit. But I still think the best I Quit matches are the ones where the brutality and the violence is so bad that they have no choice but to say I quit. And, I feel like that's the best finish for that type of a match.
I agree. It's definitely better than a pre-recorded I quit worded verbiage that somebody plays over the speaker again.
Yes, the Rockin' Mankind Royal Rumble 99.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that one worked for the time, I guess, but yeah, that was very Russo. Yes. It's very Russo. Let's see. Another one. Let's see. So we've got. I mean, what about, and I'll just kind of lump these all into one, but a cinematic type match, because like you had the Firefly Funhouse match, and then you had the Boneyard match
with Taker and AJ.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it could be done. I feel almost like we missed our spot of making that really big, because during the pandemic, that was a great way. That would have been great. Thankfully, we're not still in that state, where there's no fans and everything. But if we would have had to be in that, I would have been all for the cinematic matches because there's so much easier.
Those were during the pandemic.
Right. Both those were, yeah.
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, like if they were to go forward with that, I would have been all forward with that, all on board for that, because I'd much rather watch that than shows with no fans. You know, where I would much prefer if they just had stuck with cinematic matches for that whole time frame. Like just my opinion there. Now it's like you could do it in the right spot, but now it's like there's fans. It's like I want to see the actual matches, but
I feel like they could be done sparingly, but right.
Yep.
Like, I think the Boneyard match was actually the perfect example of how to do a perfect cinematic match because it laid out everything you needed to do. You also have to have the right gimmick for it. And I'm going to give you going to use both examples you gave as the good and bad of how to do those, right? I did not think that the Firefly Funhouse one worked as well because it felt somebody said, "Hey, Bray, we want you to be innocent and reckless at the same time." And it just was not cohesive because we are now Bray Wyatt. Where the other match, the Taker's match, it was a standard match. It was essentially just a standard Buried Alive match that just was done as an action movie / horror movie, and it worked perfectly. And I think that the concept, even that during the pandemic, of the cinematic matches died on the vine shortly after that when we got the greatest match of all time. And not saying that is the greatest match of all time. I'm saying that's what they called it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Although I actually did like the Firefly Funhouse match more than the Boneyard match. And my reasoning, even though it's hard to call it a match though, because it wasn't really a match, right?
There was no pin. There was no ending to it. John Cena was just not there anymore.
Right. No, I get all that. So, like, from that standpoint, but for seeing the surreal nature of, like, stuff you never thought you'd see, like John Cena in the NWO, you know, playing the Hollywood Hogan part, basically. And so that was cool. And then having the puppet Vince saying, "That's such good," you know? like all of that, good, yeah, all of that stuff was entertaining as heck.
And who knows, like, we kind of end up getting the John Cena and the NWO now. So
it was foreshadowing. Bray always way before his time, way ahead of his time. What about hair versus hair match? We've had a couple of these at WrestleMania.
Was the Donald Trump one?
Yep, that was that was the Battle of the Billionaires hair versus hair match. Yeah. I mean, not for Bobby Lashley or Umaga's hair because it wasn't their hair on the line, even though they were in the match. It was Donald Trump or Vince McMahon. Yes. So, but you also had Molly Holly against, I want to say,
not Victoria, Ivory.
Ivory? It might have been Ivory.
Yeah, Ivory, because I think it was right to censor Ivory at the time.
Perhaps we could be getting that wrong. We could be. I don't remember, but I remember that Molly was the one that got her head shaved.
Oh, then definitely it was not Ivory.
It would have been Ivory. Yeah.
The one I was thinking was Ivory was the one that got her head shaved.
Nope, that didn't happen. I don't think Ivory got her head shaved.
Then I'm having a Mandela effect moment because I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that happen. But
I know Molly got her head shaved. So
I remember with the short hair, so I do remember that too. But
yes,
because I like the short hair for a while.
Yeah,
I might be having a seizure. So we'll see what happens.
You know, I hear that happens when you get old.
You're older than I am. You're forever older than I am.
Yes, I know. We'll check again tomorrow. Oh goodness. I think hair versus hair can be done right with the right people and the right story. You know, could it make sense in the future? Yes. It'd have to be two people that you can't imagine losing their hair, where it's like, oh, which one's going to lose their hair? That sort of a thing. Or even hair versus mask is always a, you know, could always be interesting. So yeah, it's fully based on the story of whether or not that's a good idea or not.
Yeah. The thing is, again, we talked about this with the ladder match. It's got to be a really strong story to be a WrestleMania match.
Yeah. What about an Iron Man match?
For WrestleMania?
Well, they did Brett and Shawn.
They did. And that did go an hour plus. So.
Yes, that was the only WrestleMania I have been to.
And it was a really good match. So much so that there are so many duplicate versions of that match on the indies. Everybody wants to have that match. In fact, my only Iron Man match I have ever had was ostensibly meant to be a copy of that match.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I was in, the only Iron Man match I was in, was kind of a copy. It did go we did a 30-minute Iron Man though, and it went to 30 minutes. And then it went which went by really fast, by the way. 30 minutes goes by fast. Faster than you think.
It definitely can.
But we did the 30 minutes, went to the draw, and then we had our no. We didn't have no falls. We did have like 2 falls each or something like that, and then we went to the time limit, and then we did 5 more minutes, or we did sudden death, I think, and then ended up being, and there was blood in it too, so it was a little bit different. We didn't go a draw with no falls, but
mine didn't go with no falls either. We went 3 falls each. We were meant to go 1 fall each, but the guy I was working ended up not kicking out of a pin, and so we had to make stuff up on the fly. You remember that match? You booked it. It was the first time it was the one I won my light heavyweight championship match on, or title for. First title I ever won. That was not the tag titles.
Was it against Jimmy Daniels? No. Zen. Okay. Sorry, it wasn't memorable to me.
Should have been. I held the titles for 2 months, which is about my standard length of time holding a title, and then I lost it to you.
Oh, that I remember. And I know you always will.
It's hard not to. I lose almost every title I have to you at some point when you were booking.
That's not true. You beat me for the tag titles.
I said almost. And the only other title, or for single titles for sure. And then the only other person to ever beat me for a singles title before I made it to Devotion was Baco. When he beat me for the light heavyweight title. Because I had to leave on injury. Or I was not going to be dropping at the Baco.
Yeah. I still remember he wanted a longer match.
Yep. I wanted a longer match.
Yeah.
That was the only match we've ever had. He's now retired, so it's never going to happen. Yeah. But that was the only match we ever had in the 20 plus years I've known the man.
I'm trying to think if I've ever worked Paco. Not in a singles match for sure. We might have had some match that we were both in. In fact, I'm sure. Actually, I know we were both in like battle royals or rumble type matches. I know we've been in those, but I don't think we had a singles match ever.
We totally digressed on this, like,
Yes.
so hard.
Yes, we get sidetracked sometimes. That's what happens when we're old.
Too many chart shots to the head.
Yes. Iron Man match, though, I think it'd have to be the right story because you're taking up a large chunk of time, right? Now, there is 2 nights, but
I think, like, the Hell in a Cell, the Iron Man match, because it's going to be so long, giggity, and it's going to probably need to be the strongest story of the pay-per-view, like, of the whole card. It needs to be the main event, night 2 main event.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree on that one. If you're going to do it. And we'll end on one more that I could think of. Gimmick Battle Royal.
Well, Battle Royals in general, but the Gimmick Battle Royal. How do you not talk about the Gimmick Battle Royal? The match that had its winner only win because he was too old to be thrown over the top rope.
That's going to be me. That'll 100% be me.
For those who don't know, the Iron Sheik only won that match because he could not physically get thrown over the top rope safely without hurting himself. Oh man! But there were so many great old school people in that thing. But not just that. Like we talked about earlier, but the Andre the Giant Battle Royal was been on shows before, or WrestleManias before.
Mm-hmm.
And I tie it again to the, like I said with the Money in the Bank match, it allows a lot of people to make it to the show that would not have made it on the show. Maybe not always, the most impressive people. Like, I don't want to see the gobbledygooker probably ever again, but it worked perfectly for that Gimmick Battle Royal.
Yeah, I would love to see another Gimmick Battle Royal with some of the gimmicks. Although there's not as many, without redoing the ones that you had before, there's not as many like gimmicks like that you could throw in there, because long are the days of gimmicks. Now everybody, not everybody, but so many just wrestle under, like a regular person name because they're wrestlers. There's very few that have a gimmick now. Unless you did like gimmicks of ones that wasn't able to be in that one, but they've got to be old now. So I don't know.
Yeah, there is a large amount of my gimmick is I'm a badass in both the WWE but wrestling in general right now, which I have mentioned many times on this podcast is stupid because you do not earn or you do not gain the title of badass, you earn it. That all being said, I don't know if you could do like I think there are aspects of the Gimmick Battle Royal you could do, like bring in some people that would be more gimmick-esque, but not maybe gimmick-y, if that makes sense. Like, the Hurricane is a gimmick, right? But I would also throw the Road Dogg in there. Because, he's not very gimmick. He's not a gimmick, but he's gimmick-esque.
Have you seen how much weight he's put on? I don't want to see that. Like, unless he comes out, does his spiel on the microphone or whatnot, and then that's it. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing that to pop the crowd. I don't need to see him work a match at all.
Well, even that in the Battle Royal, like, he can get in, throw a couple of shots, do the shake, rattle, roll, and then get thrown out.
Yeah.
But again, it's similarly tied in. Scotty Too Hottie. Right.
Yeah. I will say this about Road Dogg. You know who? Have you seen him recently? Like in the interviews or anything? You know who he looks like? If he dyed his beard that he has now, which is gray and stuff, and he's bald and stuff, but if you dyed that blue, he looks like the Blue Meanie. 100%. Look it up, guys. Look it up, listeners. He looks like the Blue Meanie.
Well, now I understand why they haven't officially brought JBL back.
No, we have that in John Cena. I swear they look so much alike now.
Oh man. That all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was actually a lot of fun talking about some of these gimmick matches and stuff like that at WrestleMania and going on from there. I have had such a great time tonight. Nikki, what have you enjoyed tonight?
Yeah. I enjoy talking wrestling, but I really enjoy talking WrestleMania.
I do too, and I think we're going to try and go as we get closer to WrestleMania, talk more WrestleMania-esque things for these shows, just because it's so much fun. We've done so many great WrestleMania episodes. Go back and listen to those, where we've talked about like redoing the main event for WrestleMania, talking about some of the best matches on each WrestleMania. Like we've done tons of great things on there, so go back and watch those. That all being said, guys, I want to hear what you guys think. What is your favorite gimmick match of all time on a WrestleMania? Reach out to us on our social medias at Be Hero Media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also reach out to us at BeHeroMedia.com to do everything that is Be Hero Media. Also, right here on Spotify or YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. Comment on there as well. Please share all your information, or share all this to everybody you know, because we can definitely always use more listeners to hear what they think. All right. That all being said, guys, let's go and talk real quick before we wrap this up about what's going on with Devotion Championship Wrestling. All right, now, as of today, we will be having our next show here in Salt Lake, payment due April 5th at Light Tree Studios, the home of Devotion Championship Wrestling. That'll be a great show. It's actually be my first show officially back after my wife and I had our latest child. So I'm excited to go and make that show. I would love to see you guys there. Additionally, we will be having a show in Salt Lake at the Harley Davidson in Salt Lake, April 11th. And then the following day, April 12th, we'll be in Evanston, Wyoming at the Machine Shop. Once again, our new home in Wyoming. It's been a great time out there. I'm super excited for that. But the one I am truly excited for is April 18th, the Friday before WrestleMania, hours before SmackDown. Devotion Championship Wrestling will be wrestling out of the FSW Arena in Las Vegas for WrestleMania weekend. And not just that, but we'll be with a whole group of wrestling promotions out through all of that time, starting on Monday, going all the way to Monday, all through that week, doing wrestling, conventions, the meet and greets, a whole ton of stuff. There will be a ton of independent wrestling. If you have the opportunity to make it down for WrestleMania in Vegas, come find us and just do something to entertain yourself in addition to all that. Expand your journey of WrestleMania by seeing some great independent wrestling. I say see Devotion Championship Wrestling, but there's such great stuff out there, including GCW and CWC from Colorado. FSW, of course, will be doing their stuff. There will be such great stuff out there. So please join us out there for all of that. And with all of that being said, guys, you can find out information for all of those great events at Devotion Championship Wrestling on Facebook and Instagram, DCW Salt Lake City on Twitter, and Devotion Wrestling on YouTube and TikTok. Whew, man, it's getting more and more every time.
You're blown up.
I am, man. It's just I need to go run some laps or something just to do all of these outros. All right. Well, Psycho, is there anything else before we go?
No, I'm excited for WrestleMania season. I'm excited to keep talking WrestleMania and the build-up.
Me too, man. Me too. And I hope you guys are as well. So for the rest of Be Hero Media, he has been Psycho. I have been me. And this is us tapping out. And taking a nap, apparently. Have a good night, guys.